Hello everybody and welcome to my first Interstellar Marines interview with one of the producers, Paul Allen. Hello Paul.
Hello Tobias, how are you?
I'm fine, how are you?
Very good, thank you. Thank you for having me today.
I have prepared many questions here and I hope I can get some good answers. First of all, Paul, what is exactly Interstellar Marines? Please describe it.
Interstellar Marines is a FPS, a science fiction FPS, based approximately 100 years in the future. It has effectively two parts. So one, it will be the campaign. There'll be 3 campaigns within there, and that'll be single player and co-op. And the other half is the multiplayer. So within Interstellar Marines, the heart of the game is the campaigns, and that's what we're working towards creating. And as I said, that'll be single player and co-op, and it is a vast story. And like all really epic stories, it starts out from a small point and leads on to this incredibly massive galaxy-spanning epic ending, which we're not going to be able to reveal for quite a long time, obviously, as we're developing the game, but that's where we want to get to. The part we're working on now is the part that happens before the campaign, and that's called Prologue. And that consists of your training as a Marine. So we have multiplayer up at the moment with 8 maps, I think. We've got servers in 7 locations around the world. We've got 2 co-op campaign maps, as well as 5 challenge maps for co-op, and also we've got several single-player maps as well, including a welcome tutorial. So we're building up the section of Prologue now, the training as a Marine, and the aim of that is for us to build up the technology base and all the infrastructure and everything we need, so XP, gadgets, extra weapons, all of those, and when we're finished building all of that, then we'll move on to developing the campaigns.
Great. And what is exactly the Hell Week?
Hell Week is also part of your training as an Interstellar Marine, and the inspiration for that has been taken from what Navy SEALs, for example, go through, or the SAS selection process. It is quite a unique game mode. You'll have 9 different zones arranged in a 3x3 grid, and each of those is a completely separate, encapsulated environment. You can move between those zones. When you first start the game, there'll be 64 players, 8 players per zone, and you can have a maximum of 16 players per zone as you're moving around. So when the game starts, your job, what you're looking to do, is to collect resources. Every 15 minutes, the bottom 4 players will be removed from the game. So if you just camp in one corner and kill people, you're not going to do very well because you're not going to be collecting resources. Once there are only 8 to 10 people left, then you will move into the central zone, which is called Hell, which is full of acid pits and other not very pleasant things. And then you have Endgame. So during Endgame, you will have probably about a 10-minute period where you've got to survive working with the other people. And if you survive all of that, you're considered a winner of that particular Hell Week. So we're probably going to start off with 1 Hell Week per day per region, so Europe, US East, US West. And we'll see how it goes in terms of the number of people playing. If we find more people playing, we'll have more Hell Weeks. And that's kind of the initial thing that we want to do, and then we want to develop that further with adding more weapons, adding more resources, adding more maps. Eventually what we want to have is basically almost like a persistent universe, where if you win a Hell Week, you keep the resources that you've acquired during that period, and then later on maybe you can spend them towards a new skin for your weapon or a new skin for your helmet or that kind of thing. So we kind of want to build an ecosystem around it to develop it as much as possible into something as unique as possible, while still keeping it within the lore of Interstellar Marines, which is you are training to be a Marine. This is part of your training.
So it is a kind of survival game mode?
Yeah, very much so. It's the whole process of Prologue is designed to get rid of the weaker candidates for the Interstellar Marines program. And that's where this fits in beautifully, because Hell Week is designed to weed out, or in our case, kill, the people who are just simply not suitable to be an Interstellar Marine. And it's a representation of that process.
Sounds great. Okay, Paul, I've got some questions here from my subscribers, and are you ready to start?
Yep, I've got them in front of me.
Okay, let's do it. Okay, the first question is, will there be more weapons in the future?
Yeah, we are planning totally on having 27 weapons. We have at the moment 2, an assault rifle and SMG. The next weapon we add is probably going to be a pistol, although there has been some talk of a shotgun. So that's what we'll have when the game's complete. We will be adding them slowly. At the moment, we need to do a little bit of a change to the way that we handle the weapons in our code. And when we do that, it will make it much easier to be able, and much quicker to be able to add weapons, rather than the more time-consuming process which it is now.
Okay, so my next question is, will there be more enemies in the future? Yes,
within the campaign, there will be a lot of enemies, NPCs, non-player characters, all of that kind of thing. There'll be a lot actually. Within the multiplayer. Because if what you're doing is training to be a Marine, so you're doing fights against other Marines. Within the co-op missions that we do, we may add different kinds of bots. So, for example, one thing that we were looking at doing is adding a hostage scenario kind of game type. So we need hostages in there. So there will be a lot of other enemies, but the vast majority of them will be within the campaigns.
Very cool. And I heard there is a mutant shark, is that right?
The land shark is the most iconic thing of Interstellar Marines. It actually plays a relatively small part of the story, but it's one of those things that seems to have captured the public's imagination. And it is, as you say, a genetic mutant. Well, it's genetically created as a crossbreed between a great white. It takes some of the assets of a rhino, so you imagine like a rhino's hard skin and a horn. If you can apply that to the front of a great white, imagine how powerful that would make it. And lots of other different animals to create a creature that is violent, highly intelligent, will kill you as soon as look at you, but will also stalk you and hunt you down. Which means it will be absolutely fantastic for the campaign, but from a technical point of view, it makes creating the AI for it very challenging. And we want to make sure that our AI is as good as we can make it before we actually release the land shark. So we're gradually building on the AI, and that's why within the game now we have what we call CTRs, or combat training robots. And those robots are basically a testbed, a development method to be able to work on and build up the AI. Once we get it to a point where we're happy, then we will do the land shark.
Sounds cool. So Paul, my next question is, what kind of enemies will be coming in the future?
The first, I can't reveal too much because it's mostly part of the campaign, but there will definitely be you could almost call them insurgents or terrorists. One of the first missions that you do as part of the campaign is to be able to fight against them. So that's one example. I can't reveal too much about this, but if you look carefully at the concept art, you will see that there is an image of a concept image of an alien in there. I'm not going to reveal anything about that, but that plays a reasonably significant part within the campaign.
Okay, so my next questions are about the coming up gadgets in the game, and the first question is, will there be a night vision goggle?
Yes, it's absolutely. It's one of the things we want to add as quickly as possible. Actually, we have. If you've played Interstellar Marines, you know it's quite a dark game. Which means that you need to use your flashlight quite a lot, but obviously your flashlight gives your position away. So when you're playing in multiplayer, you tend not to use it, which makes for some very tense moments as you're hunting other players, but also quite limits your ability to see things. So what we want to do as quickly as possible is bring in night vision goggles. So the advantage of that obviously is in the darker segments of the game you can see much better. But if somebody then puts their flashlight on, that will blind you. And it adds an additional layer of tactical, not movement, but tactics to the game. It means you can see in the dark, but there's a potential negative if somebody flashes you and blinds you. You can't see, and you get immediately shot.
Cool. So next question is, are you able to modify your weapon in the future?
Yes. You'll have different sculpts. You'll have lots of different items that you can add to your weapons. The game is based about 100 years in the future, so you can imagine that we look for what we believe will be realistic developments in technology. So there will not be laser weapons in Interstellar Marines, for example. We'll still be using ammunition. But you will be able to change your weapons, both from the perspective of adding different things to them and also from the perspective of changing the skins on them as well.
Cool. So my next question is, can you craft items or weapons in the game?
Not crafting per se, so you won't be able to take different basic items and then create a new weapon. But what we generally don't want to do is to say, if you want to have this gadget, then you've got to unlock these 3 other gadgets before it. We don't kind of want that unlock system in that way. What we want to do is to have an XP system where you can decide what you want to do and how you want your character to progress. So if you like being a medic, for example, you may use your experience points towards being able to revive people quicker, or having more effective med packs, or other items related to being a medic. So we kind of want to give the player as much freedom as possible for them to decide how they build their character. And that means we don't necessarily want to restrict you to just you're only a level 3, so you only get access to 2 weapons. We pretty much want you to have access to all the weapons as much as possible, because in a real-life situation as a soldier, you would have, especially a Special Forces soldier, you'll be able to choose and pick your weapon depending on the job that you're going to do. So it's trying to make it as unrestricted as possible, whilst giving the player as much freedom as possible to use those experience points towards what they wish to do.
Okay. So my next 2 questions are about the craftable items, but you said it already, there will be never a craftable system in the game.
Yeah, that's correct. It's not craftable in that way. Let's say we're aiming to have 27 weapons. Those 27 weapons will have different things you can attach, such as scopes or lasers or other kinds of things that you can attach to the weapons. So you can adjust the weapon for the scenario and for your personal preference. But in terms of actually crafting something out of raw materials, no, it would not have something like that.
Okay, so there's already the last question, and it's about, is there in the future a skill system?
Yes. We're not going to have classes. So there won't be, for example, a soldier or a medic or a sniper, that kind of thing. What we want to do is to give players the ability to decide what they want to do, or kind of an RPG system almost. You earn XP or experience points as you're playing, and you can then use them to unlock different things. So as I mentioned before, the medic example, it could be something along the lines of, let's say you want to move more into information warfare. So we will be developing what's called Titan Walkers, which are remote-controlled robotic walkers, which you can give attack or defend or guard orders, that kind of thing. So it could be that the opposition has got one of these and it's controlling a certain area. You may wish to put some of your experience points in towards the ability to hack a Titan Walker quicker. If you do that, then maybe what you do is you say to your team, look, I see that Titan Walker, I think I can get in there and hack it and gain control of it, but I need you guys to cover me as I'm doing it. If you have used some of your experience points towards being able to hack quicker, you would be the obvious person to do that. It could be hacking doors, kind of like PlanetSide 2, I guess. It could be different other things, but the basic premise is to give the player as much freedom as we can, because Kim, who's the game designer and he drives the project. It's his idea, it's his passion, it's his life in many ways. He's got a very clear idea of taking things from System Shock 2, of Half-Life 2 and those kind of games, and using them to give the player as much creative freedom as they can to be able to solve a mission or solve a problem in the way that is best for the player, not in a way that's forced by the game to do this way. And it also comes into level design and campaign design. We always give multiple ways of being able to finish a campaign or to finish a mission. And the reason for that is, and also secondary objectives, tertiary objectives even, to give the player that freedom to replay, to do things the player's way, rather than, as you may have played other games in the past, and I can certainly think of a few offhand, where when you play in a campaign, for example, you're basically on rails. There's only one direction you can go in, and if you step out of that direction, the game basically says, hey, you're not allowed to do that. So we really, wherever possible, want to avoid that kind of pigeonholing and forcing a player into doing what we want them to. We want the player to be able to do what they want to do.
Sounds great. So this was my last question about the game. Paul, have you enjoyed the interview?
Very much so. It's an awful long time since I did one of these, and it's been absolutely great talking to you, Tobias. I really do appreciate you taking the time to do this and for working with Thordis to arrange this as well. Thank you.
Yeah, I hope the game gets more popular in the future, because it had so many great ideas, and I hope there will be more players in the future. That would be cool.
Thank you. We obviously we agree with you. But yeah, we work very hard on that, and we are incredibly fortunate because we have, as I mentioned, I think right at the beginning, we got a community which is so supportive. I've been playing games for 30 years. I've been in a lot of communities, and I don't think I've ever been involved in one which is as supportive and constructive and honest as the Interstellar Marines one is. The community will tell you when you do things wrong, and they will very clearly let you know what they like and do not like, but it's done in a constructive way. So you can, and that for us is perfect. So even if it's something the community dislikes, as long as the explanation is why you dislike it, we can take that back and say, well, okay, this is the reasoning, and we'll look at that. You know what? You're actually right. So it just makes life so much easier for us.
Yeah, so thank you, Paul, for having time for my interview, and I hope you have a nice day.
Thank you very much. Take care, and thanks so much.